Hey everybody, it's Tony from the Portage Posse, and you're watching the Stoke Show. This week, we're going to talk about something that makes me more stoked than anything, and that's safety.
Sure.
I'm here with William Holman, the North Carolina ACA Director.
Yep.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I think it's an awesome time. Off camera, we were talking about how it's weird that we're both triangle boaters.
Yes.
Like, I actually was messaging William for this interview, and I was just like, well, where are you at? And he said Sanford, and I was like, oh, I'm in Sanford. And I was like, you know, it's crazy being from the triangle and having same town, lived not that far from each other, and then come
never
to find
boated together.
Never boated together, never met in person, or never, at least never talked in person.
Yeah.
You know, you never know with kayaking these days.
Yeah, we
you know.
probably passed each other at one point.
Yeah. So how does it feel being a triangle boater? You know, how does it feel to be in good company?
I've loved being a triangle boater. That's what's kept me going the whole time. The people, the community, the club, the low rivers suck.
Yeah.
Having to wait on rain, but it's worked for me, so I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the triangle is just kind of this weird spot. I think a lot of times where rain just happens to miss us for no reason. And you'll see like all the weather forecasts. It'll be nice. It'll be like, all right, we're gonna get rain for these days. Let's see what the river does. And especially this time of year. I mean, I think it's universal, but I feel like the triangle most of all doesn't see any of the watershed.
No, south of us.
Yeah,
so it doesn't get into our watershed.
Yeah, like right now we're at the Hall River, which is like for triangle boaters is like they're gonna know this is like the staple river for the triangle. It's kind of like the lower Hall is like a class 2+3-ish run. And right now it's about 400 CFS, which like the starting point.
I think it's lower than that.
I think I'm maybe being generous too.
I think you're being generous. I think it's really low. Like nobody would paddle it this way, except for Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry, if you're watching this, I know you'll be excited to hear that it's at least 200. We'll make sure to see you down at some point.
It's suitable for you.
Yeah. So, I guess tell me a little bit about your like boating background, like now, especially now going from like, you know, being a boater to an ACA director, like how does that happen? Like where do you go from start to finish?
I got into kayaking for fishing. I wanted to get out to the spots to fish, so I got a kayak, started kayaking, met other people, started kayak camping, and then from there, like the rapids, got into the canoe club, and the canoe club really got me into the instructor, the safety, all that. Before that, I was one of those boaters out there that were doing the wrong things, for sure. The canoe club got me into the safety we're in, and took a swiftwater rescue course right out here with the canoe club, and then from there that inspired me to do more. I was approached to take over the safety chair. I took over the safety chair, became an instructor, and then it just kept going from there, from safety chair to being approached to take over state director, and that's something I really enjoyed versus the canoe club, because the canoe club was focused on just whitewater, which is great, and I loved it, but that was more what I wanted to do. But I couldn't affect so much of the recreational boaters. So by becoming the state director, I was able to affect a lot more of that aspect of it in the safety.
Yeah, which I think that there's something, I guess nice about that, because you think about, I guess, whitewater incidents in general, like at the end of the year, I feel like it looks, not that I'm saying that wreck boaters are the problem, because it may be going to come out this way, but when you look at a lot of the incidents that happen, like especially notable ones, oftentimes it ends up being wreck boaters.
It is.
And I think some of it is, they're just more aware. It's easier to get like something like a sun dolphin from Walmart and just go kayaking and not really understanding like water flow and
that's exactly, it's education. They don't know what they don't know. Whereas you're in the, you know, the Carolina Canoe Club, and you're coming up with, you know, Pete and Jerry and everything, so you got that education through them. The same with me and the Canoe Club and everyone else. We get that education because it's a close-knit group. If you go out here and try to paddle whitewater without a helmet or life jacket, you're not going. They're not going to take you. Recreationally, you go out to the lake without a life jacket, like when you're paddleboarding, you started paddleboarding.
Yeah.
Out there without a life jacket.
Yeah, I can guarantee you I do not, I'll wear a tether and that's about it.
I mean, and that was it. That's how you work. You just don't know. You don't know the hazards. The whitewater community police up themselves. The recreational community, there's nobody to police them up, per se, so they don't know what they don't know, and that's what they do.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm sure that there's a lot more good things for them to take away. Like I think when you probably start a recreational class, like I feel like more people are walking away with better information.
Definitely.
Not to say that there's bad information being put out for whitewater, but like you said, everyone's kind of making sure everyone else is doing the right thing. And I think that's important. Do you wish at times that you could be more focused on whitewater?
I wish at times I could more focus on whitewater for myself personally, not so much what I'm teaching or what I'm influencing, because I know whitewater is policing up itself. So as a state director, I'm not too focused on them. I like to help them. I like to advance them, keep that education there, especially with the canoe club. Starting out there, I try to pay my dues back to them as much as I can, but I try to focus more of my attention on the rec boaters because that's where they need the help. Personally, I like to get out more if I could, but I mean, that's how life goes.
Yeah.
I got to work, I got to pay the bills. The mortgage company said so.
What was it like when they came up to you and were like, hey, you want to be the ACA director?
Actually, it was Larry that kind of recommended me to Andrea White, who was the regional chair at that time. She'd stepped up from Tennessee State Director. And I'd kind of considered the job like a year before because I was trying to do this safety program for the state, and it wasn't falling in the Carolina Canoe Club purview, so I was trying to do it outside of that. So I'd looked at it and I'd kind of dropped it and not did it. So when they approached me, I was like, you know what? Let me do that. I think I can do a lot of good with that. And I enjoy that part of it. So I was like, yeah, let me do it.
What's been your proudest moment as the ACA director so far?
Being able to help people. So like the Kayaking 101 that we did last year, that's coming up again this year. We were able to train, like we talked about, the rec boaters. Last year was over 130 at 11 locations across the state. This year we're looking at 15 locations across the state, 15 students per location. And it's an all-volunteer staff that's running it. So 3 to 4 ACA instructors, a photographer, a volunteer, a Coast Guard rep, or Coast Guard auxiliary rep, a state park ranger, a wildlife resource officer, all telling these rec boaters the good information.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this is the resources. This is how you plan and research and do the proper things when you're out there, so you can stay safe and enjoy your time on the water. And being able to do that and affect that many people has just been great. So I'm really looking forward to this year as well.
Well, that's awesome. And when will that date be for it?
So the Kayaking 101 this year is May 18th. It's going to be at 15 locations across the state. The registration's already open. We've already got 4 locations that are booked. The other ones they're creeping up. There's a few that are lagging behind, but I think they're going to book just like last year. And then I think it's going to be a good thing.
That's awesome. I mean, what's the plan for doing more events like that? Because I feel like that is a really great opportunity for a lot of people.
So that event, because it's all volunteers, and as an ACA instructor, if you talk to any ACA instructor, we've got almost 200 in the state. That's a lot of time and money away from them. A lot of them work for business, to include myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're taking money out of their pocket to come in and volunteer for a date, which all of them agreed, and I got over 50 this year, so I'm really excited about that. And they're helping us out, so I'm excited about that. But
Mm-hmm.
to try to get these volunteers to come in and do another volunteer massive effort is hard to do. And I do hit them up every once in a while. Hey, we've got this. Anybody want to volunteer and help them out? Whether it's Wounded Warriors, Team River Runner, the adaptive paddle sports up in Bridge Sports, and then a couple other ones that just came into the state. And I'm hitting up those instructors. Hey, anybody want to volunteer? But to try to reach out and really make them volunteer when I can't give them really anything back other than a T-shirt, it's kind of hard. The T-shirt's nice, but and they all enjoy it and they all participate, and I appreciate it tenfold over because it's a lot. It's a big commitment for them.
No, I mean, I think it's a good thing. I mean, it's giving to a community that
Mm-hmm.
desperately needs it. I feel like, especially when you look at kayaking in general, it's something that seems so accessible, but you don't get any of the good information when you just do it. I mean, and it's kind of tough. And I think having the ACA as an institution to try to help facilitate that is an important thing.
Oh, definitely.
What's one thing that you would like everyone to take away from at all skill levels?
To reach out and paddle with a group, because you're going to learn from a group, you're going to get the safety message, but you're also not paddling by yourself. And a lot of people, especially experienced boaters too, have a bad habit of, I'm good, it's not going to happen to me, I'm going to go out and paddle by myself, and that's when we have problems. If you're going with a group, you're more likely to have that peer pressure. Hey, that's probably not a good idea. Now, whitewater, you might have peer pressure. Hey, you should go over that drop, but that's a little bit different. You might have the right peer pressure, but that'll give you a little bit of education, hopefully pique your interest to take more education. I would love to see everyone take education. It's just not feasible, I don't think. I don't think a lot of people can afford it because it's not cheap unless it's like this event, Kayaking 101. So if they can get education, great, get it. I didn't do it as a beginner, and looking back and now as an instructor, I'm like, I could have really benefited from taking an education course.
Mm-hmm.
The things I could have learned and probably saved me a little bit of heartache on the river, and those times I got really lucky and I probably shouldn't have, wouldn't have existed. So
No.
groups and education for sure.
I think I've got one. I like that I see your bag off camera and it's got a throw rope on it. Like, I mean, and I'm guilty of this too. It's like a lot of times just going to the river and not having a throw rope on it. And I mean, for me personally, I recently had an experience where I was like, man, I was really glad somebody had a throw rope. The Cascades release recently, I had a paddle break and I swam through Junkyard. Very painful experience, but the hole at the bottom, I ended up getting recirced at one point. As I'm coming into the hole, I see a guy with a camera, and I was like, oh man, I was like, this guy's probably gonna get some really good footage in a moment. And luckily, as I get recirced and I come back up, I see the guy, and he's like, hey, rope, and I was like, oh, thank God this guy's got a rope.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most incredible experiences of being like, oh man, I'm in a really bad spot. This really sucks. Thank God there's this random guy with a camera and he has a rope on him. And I mean, and it's something that I feel like gets brought up pretty regularly, but not everyone does, myself included. I'm definitely guilty of not, even when scouting, taking a throw bag out of my kayak just to take with me.
So a rope is a double-edged sword. Yeah, I've got my rope, my helmet, my life jacket. I've got it all in there. If I'm going down the river, I usually have it just in case. You never know. Just like we passed, some people out there that were near the river. You never know if they fall in. So as a safety swiftwater rescue, I always like to have my stuff if I'm near the river. But it's a rope's a double-edged sword. It's one of the things as an instructor we try to tell people that you have to know how to use that rope, or it's more of a hazard than it is a help. So it's both, have a rope, but also know how to use it, practice it.
Yeah, it's definitely not like an end-all, be-all solution for every problem.
I have a lot of people come to class and experienced boaters and go to throw the rope and it goes up that way, or they're throwing it out that way and it goes over there. And it's just trying to explain to people, you have to throw your rope, you have to practice. Even as an instructor, I'm not perfect, I have to practice. And so it's a big thing. Have it, but also practice with it.
Yeah.
Take it with you every time when you get home, throw it out to let it dry, and then coil it back up before you go back out. And
I wish it was easier to coil.
you just gotta get practice.
I mean, it's not hard.
Just come out to one of my classes. Come out June 1st and 2nd, I think it is, for the Canoe Club, and I'll give you plenty of practice throwing ropes and pulling it back up. Then you'll be good.
I'm gonna mark my calendar.
There you go.
Yeah, because it's not that it's like hard. It's just when you get to the top of the rope bag, sometimes it feels like there's way more rope and not enough bag.
You probably didn't pack it right.
I mean, you're probably right.
You just need to take classes. You learn to practice. That's all it is. You can practice with mine if you want. You want to go throw it? And you can practice
yeah.
While you're sitting here, just kind of pack it. That'll work.
We'll play fetch later. Catch. we'll play catch with the throw
go.
bag. We'll take turns. Be great. Yeah, I mean, like I think that I'm definitely guilty of not focusing and prioritizing safety courses nearly as much. And I think that's probably true for a lot of high-end boaters. Not that they say that they don't know what to do, but I feel like there's probably more time that can be spent getting refresher, getting time with whatever skill.
As a high-end boater, how often do you swim?
Ooh, I probably would say I probably swim like once every 3 to 4 months. Like
And how many boat trips is that though?
Ooh.
And this is you who's come up through like the rivers in like a madness in a couple years.
Yeah, dude, if I had to say, it's probably close to like 20, 25 trips or so. I'm thinking if I'm getting about like at least 1 to 2 a weekend, I'm gonna get around 20 to 40 trips without having a swim.
So as the new boaters come along, how often do they swim?
Oh, dude, it's like every time.
So they're more experienced swimming, the life-saving skill, than an experienced boater, because an experienced boater doesn't ever do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely true, and I can tell you, as going through Junkyard and having every rock hit my butt and realizing I'm gonna be super bruised later, I was like, oh, great. I was like, all right, figure out what you need to do. I was like, feet forward, please don't catch on a rock anywhere. And I just remember I was just like, okay, well, it's great. I was like, maybe I should have, was there any point in time that I could have maybe acted a little bit faster?
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that, I'm sure there's maybe 1 or 2 things I could have done differently.
I mean, don't be a victim. That's the biggest thing, and we teach it in classes. Don't be a victim when you're swimming. Be actively trying to help yourself and not just floating, waiting for that rapid in that hole. And it happens a lot. I mean, we have it with new swimmers out here. We have it with experienced boaters. You'll see, instead of trying to really actively get out of that situation, they're just kind of taking it for a ride. And remember that, June 1st, June 2nd, Carolina Canoe Club members.
I know you're watching.
Yeah, because we don't ever fill a class. I don't know how a whitewater club doesn't fill a swiftwater class, but just throwing that out there. June 1st, June 2nd.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's definitely a good call. Definitely. So is it 2-day course?
It's a 2-day course. So it's day 1 on Saturday would be the L3 River Safety and Rescue course, which every boater should take. And I do teach it to every boater. I teach it to recreational boaters. I teach it to the touring and coastal boaters from the Kayak Club. They fill a class, by the way. Carolina Kayak Club, they do good. They fill it. The touring boaters fill it. The whitewater boaters don't. I teach it to the canoe club. So it's just a basic level self-rescue. And then the second day is the L4 portion, which is the more advanced, the Z-drags, the rescue harness, the cinches, the live bait stuff, the more advanced, more technical stuff. We do that on day 2. But you can take the 1 day with just the basic, or you can take the 2 day for the more advanced stuff.
It's a good opportunity, guys. Don't be like me and slack on it.
Or the other people. There's a bunch of them.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure. And I think it's something that you don't need until you really need it. And
you don't need it until you need it, and then it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
sure.
Do you have a good swim story?
Trying to think of a good swim. I don't have a lot of swims, knock on wood, but I don't have a lot of boat time as much as like you do either. I don't know that I have a good swim. I've swam Gabe's. I've swam about every rapid. I was thinking about the other day. Every rapid on the lower I've swam at one point or another. I'm trying to think if I have a good one. I think the best swim, the worst swim I had was in a class. I was teaching an L4 class, swiftwater class at Irwin, on the Cape Fear River, not the Noli, last year. And by day 2, the L4 portion, we'd had a lot of rain and the river had come up to higher than I've ever taught, which was perfect for an L4 because it was the more advanced class. And my very last swim, I got waterboarded hard. So I was trying to swim across the river and get to the bank, and I got hit by every wave. I drank probably a gallon of water. By the time I got to the bottom and they were throwing me, or my students were throwing me ropes, because that's what they were supposed to do, I was just like, yeah, I don't care. I just floated to the bank. I didn't have any energy left. I'd fought it the whole way. That's probably my worst swim, was in class.
Would you say that you're good at throwing a rope?
I would say I'm decent at throwing a rope. I just threw, this weekend I threw some, so not bad.
Are you going to the NFL anytime soon?
No, definitely not. No. I can hit a water target. I can't overarm throw a football. So yeah, we're not doing that.
Huh. That's. Yeah. I feel like.
Too tall. I underhand. I do a softball throw. I don't do the football throw. I'm not good at that one. That one's a harder one. Yeah, I can throw pretty good in my spot. The class that I was just in with Jerry, we were throwing, and one of our students had put us against the wind, so we were all throwing into the wind when we were doing our target practice, and I sucked then, so I realized I needed to practice again. But it had been all winter. I hadn't teach a class since winter, so I taught another class this weekend, so I'm better again. I got it.
Yeah, you're
I'm back at it again.
There you go. You're not as rusty.
Yeah.
What do you want to be the one takeaway for your time as the director? Like, what if you look back 5 years from now? What do you want to say that you accomplished as director?
That I made the ACA something worthwhile in North Carolina. So the ACA does a bunch of great things. They do all these different educational. They do competition. You know, the governing body for the Olympic paddle sports. They do the conservation. They do the education. They do insurance for instructors for clubs. They take care of clubs. But most people don't know it. Most people right now, and it's something when I took over that I promised I was going to do before I started recruiting people. Like, are you an ACA member?
No, I know I'm not an ACA member.
My mentor, which I won't mention his name, but it sounds like Larry, who was huge in ACA, is not an ACA member. And we've had this conversation. And I have told him, and I've told everyone else, that my goal as a state director is to make the ACA worth joining in North Carolina. I can't control every other state, but I want to make ACA worth joining in North Carolina. And I think we're on the way to that. We're doing things. I've got an awesome committee with a bunch of different instructors and people across the state that are helping me out. We've got a bunch of things. We're networking. The Kayaking 101's picking up really big. The ACA is getting known. The instructors are starting to get active. So I think we're getting there. I think we got a lot more work to do, but I've also got notice from ACA National. So they're starting to notice what we're doing. I'm getting feedback from them. I'm getting support from them. So I'm happy with that, and that's kind of where I want to be. I want there to be this one source, which is a totally different thing that I'll work outside of ACA in the future, but be this one source for rec boaters. Mm-hmm. So if I go buy a kayak at Dunham's, I can go to one place. It's going to tell me where the clubs are, who the clubs are, where the other retailers are, where the paddle trails are, where the safety, the classes. So I can go to one place and get that, and you just can't get that right now. I know it, and you probably know most of it, and you probably know most of it, but those rec boaters that just bought that boat don't.
It's tough. I mean, I think even when you look at it, when I was just doing recreational kayaking, other than Jordan Lake, I was like, okay, well, I don't really know
Yeah.
where else what to do. What can I do? And it was the same thing was true for whitewater. I think getting the information and understanding where to get that information is always kind of tough. I think it can be really daunting trying to figure out everything on your own. And I think having a resource like that to try to figure that out, or read it from someone else so you don't have to do the work to figure it out is important.
Yeah, and things like that I enjoy. Putting together projects like whitewaterkayaks.info. Have you ever seen that?
No, I have not actually.
So whitewaterkayaks.info is a database of all the plastic whitewater kayaks. So you can go in there and you can sort any kayak you want. You can pull it up and look. You have to check it out.
Huh.
I started that with the paddler that I started with, the 6'6", 300-pound dude. Nothing fit him. So I started this little generic database because somebody would say, oh, he could fit in a Karma large. Okay, we'll put the specs in. He could fit in this. Okay, we'll put the specs in. And we started it like, okay, he didn't fit in this one, so he's not going to work in this one. And then it just went from there, and I built it up pretty good for him. Let it set for a year or two. I got into whitewater. I'm like, let me do more work on that. And I just kept doing it, and then I posted it across the clubs as an Excel spreadsheet. And I'm like, well, this ain't going to work. This is not, there's no longevity in this. So advice of other people, hey, just build a website and put it in there. I was like, cool, that's what I'll do. So I built a website, put the database in there. I had help from numerous people. Hunter Brandsetter from Tennessee was a big one. And we built it up. So every plastic whitewater kayak that we've ever found or anybody ever knows about is on there. Now, all the specs aren't on there because we couldn't find them all, but we found probably 92% of them, maybe a little bit more. So quite a bit. And then Hunter went in there and added the skort boats. We've got some of the C1s and canoes, and we just built a website.
That's pretty impressive to.
And it's a sortable, because that was the biggest thing. I could go on these websites and I could find, hey, this, but I couldn't sort it to say, hey, I want a boat that fits this category or this long. And it's in there, and I update it anytime new boats come out. So it's really cool.
So you're saying I don't just have to make a post on Facebook asking about what kayak?
No, you can go to whitewaterkayaks.info. whitewaterkayaks.info. And I'm getting ready to, it's not official, so I won't say who, but there's a nonprofit that's getting ready to probably take over that, so it has that longevity. And it's not just me maintaining it. Now they'll maintain it for, a lifetime, because they're a nonprofit that'll hold it. So it won't go bankrupt like some of the other websites have.
That's fair. What's your favorite kayak then?
Whitewater or recreational?
Whitewater, yeah.
He's like, whitewater. So the Antics 2 was my favorite. I paddled it the most, probably out of anything. I only got rid of it to get the hot whip because it was very similar. I was like, it's time to try something different. And I love the hot whip. The hot whip was really fun. But then every time I do something, somebody's like, I see something, I'm like, crap, I need a new boat. So in class, it was the Ripper 2. Our instructor, awesome instructor, by the name of Chris. Yeah, name dropping a lot, huh?
Yeah, you are. I mean, I like it.
So yeah, Chris told us, and he even made a point that I'd never thought about as an instructor, as a river or whitewater instructor. You have to have a boat that you can attain in, because if your students have something wrong, you have to be able to attain back up to them. I'm like, well, the hot whip's out on that one because it doesn't attain very well. It is a fun boat, but it doesn't attain. And then my fellow students were out there just tearing it up in Ripper 2, so I'm like, okay, I got to get that.
I regret selling my Ripper 2.
So yeah, now that's on my list.
Yeah, I sold the Ripper 2. I didn't like it at first. And granted, it's not the boat's fault. I was like, it was a really wet time right after I got back from Chile. And it was like, I was getting back-ended a lot. And which is granted, it's a skill issue for sure. But I was just like, man, every lap is getting really spicy. And I'm really tired of everything being really spicy. Yeah, but I think if I had to say a favorite boat, it'd probably be the Dagger Rewind still. Okay. I regret selling my Rewind as well, but I sold it for a Ripper. And then I sold my Ripper, and I haven't quite figured out my new half slice in forever.
That's how it goes. You just sell one and get another one, sell one, get another one. It's just like I got the RMX, the large one, but after paddling the hot whip for so long, anytime I get in it, I'm like, this is so big. So I'm probably going to sell it and get another longer half slice. Yeah. It's just the cycle.
Yeah, for sure.
I still got the Big EZ. I do love that boat. That's fun for like this. That was like my go-to for coming out here. Was the Big EZ. Just coming out here because it was always fun. I'm not a big play boater. I'm not a big, the doing all the different stuff, but it was so fun because it was, even on this CFS, every little thing caught the edges and just made it so entertaining. It was never, I couldn't just sit there and paddle. I had to actually actively paddle or I was going to get flipped.
Yeah.
So I loved that boat. It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's always the nice thing about, I think, being able to take a step back and just enjoy like a local run. Yeah. I mean, as we were walking out here today, I know I complained about like, yeah, I always say I'm going to be on the haul more. I never am.
It's too much. It's beneath you now. You
I don't want to say that.
The halls for us local boaters.
No, it's funny though, because I come back every now and then to try to boat in the triangle somewhere just on a random day, and then I always I kind of like, oh man, I kind of miss this, Like after like a long weekend of like paddling something hard, I'm like being able to like just be like, oh, I'm gonna take my full slice out, I'm gonna have a nice day, and then not worry about anything. I think
have fun.
Some of the most fun I've had recently kayaking was actually on the middle haul. Like I just, it was like 3,000 CFS.
Yeah.
It was just like a day where I was like, oh, I can just decompress, paddle. There's also like a oddly good splat rock somewhere on the middle haul. Like
I think there's a bunch on both sections at different levels. You just have to find them. Because there's a couple down here near Moose Jaw as well. It just depends on the level.
Well, like any lower rocky run, though, I'm always scared that I'm going to end up welding the boat at some point.
I mean, isn't that a part of the game?
Yeah. Well, with that, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on.
I appreciate you having me.
Hey, don't forget, guys, make sure to go check out all the links. They'll be in the description down below. Kayaking 101 coming up May 18th.
May 18th.
And then whitewaterkayaks.info if you want to find out about some specs for whitewater kayaks.
You have to check it out.
Yeah. And make sure to support your ACA organization in your state.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.